Joining me now is Ned Price, MSNBC national security analyst and a former CIA analyst and NSC spokesman. And the panel is back, Asted, Susan, and Eddie. Guys, Ned, you're a former intelligence staffer. Do you have whiplash with what happened today?
Well, Katie, it's hard to develop whiplash with this president on this issue because it's something we have endured for years now. Indeed, this president, when he was the Republican nominee, said it was not the Russians, it was a 400-pound man. Then when he was president-elect, he changed that tune. Shortly thereafter, he compared our intelligence community to Nazis. And then last November, he did the very same about-face we're seeing today. He was in Asia, in Vietnam, where he had just come from meeting with Vladimir Putin, where he said something strikingly similar to what he said yesterday, essentially that he believed President Putin's denials. The next day, he reversed himself and said, well, what he meant to say is he believed that Putin believed his own denials. And so we have seen this before time and again from President Trump. President Trump has tried to tell us just how much respect, how much regard he gives to our intelligence community. And I think it's finally time that we believe him.
Ned, what do you think that meeting at the White House sounded like this morning with the principals, all those security heads?
Well, judging by where they landed, there was a lot of hair pulling, I would imagine. There was a lot of frustration. If this, blaming it on a misplaced contraction, was the best idea they could come up with, they must have thrown other ideas up against the wall that just didn't stick. And I would love to hear what those harebrained ideas must have been. But you can only imagine the level of frustration on the part of some members of this administration, whether it's Mike Pompeo, whether it's John Bolton, whether it's Secretary Mattis, people who have tried to take a hard line against Russia, who are stuck with this president who can't help but allow Vladimir Putin, for whatever reason, to be the puppet master in this very strange relationship.
Ned, why do you think Rod Rosenstein was at the White House today? Could it have something to do with that meeting?
Well, I understand that at least what the White House is saying is that it was unrelated to that, but you never know. Look, I certainly hope that they are not mixing matters of policy and matters of law enforcement. I certainly hope they are not doing what President Trump admitted, frankly, to what he did with Vladimir Putin, where they discussed, in his own words, the lack of collusion in their 2-hour one-on-one private meeting. I hope there is not this mixture of law enforcement and policy with this administration, but we've seen it before, so it wouldn't be all that surprising, frankly.
There were no note takers in that room. There were no other staff. It was just the interpreters, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and the interpreters. But I would imagine, and Peter Baker pointed this out earlier, that the Russians probably had some sort of listening device in that room. Who knows if we did as well? I mean, maybe no one had a listening device, but it would be hard to believe given how the Russians operate. Is there any concern out there that they may have a record of it and we do not? Is there a scenario where anyone in our government should be meeting alone with somebody like Vladimir Putin?
Well, absolutely not. Look, one-on-one meetings between presidents are exceedingly, strikingly rare. President Obama, as far as I know, had one true one-on-one during his presidency, and in fact, it was with Vladimir Putin. So he could deliver a very carefully scripted and choreographed message about Russia's meddling in our election. There were no other meetings like this for a very simple reason. It is a terrible idea. It is a terrible idea because the meeting is left to interpretation. And unfortunately, what we've seen with President Trump and the Russians, they will use everything they have on him. And there have been allegations out there about what that might entail. What they have now are 2 hours of discussion with someone who isn't always careful with his words, is sometimes imprudent with his comments. And if Donald Trump said anything in that meeting that could come back to bite him, that could be seen as embarrassing, you can bet that the Russians, whether they have a recording, whether it's just notes, whatever it is, that they will use that against him in the future as additional leverage in addition to whatever they have now.
The one thing that Donald Trump has going for him is that I guess he doesn't often get embarrassed by anything that he says. He sure said a whole lot of improbable things. So.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.